Obviously, we said this is a season of sacrifice. We've kind of said that to our guys. I didn't want to say it's a season of disappointment at times too, but obviously a tougher situation. Being off or going to be off for 28 days. So it's tough on our guys. Obviously, they want to get back out there and play, same as us. It's just you've got some serious time to in between a lot of things. Obviously, we haven't all been together for a good portion of the last 14 days, but nonetheless, at least we've got some clarity now about what it is that we're working towards and trying to put a plan in place and keep these guys as occupied as possible. With everything that's going on school wise, it's pretty much over and done for the most part, other than maybe some finals. And now just kind of having to kind of group the guys and get them on a little bit different path so we can make sure we're ready for the 19th.
All right, guys, go ahead with questions.
Coach, can you just start by walking us through the process for you guys this week on the field and then how this decision got made as far as you understand?
I don't know how the decisions got made. We're not involved in those things. But for us, yesterday was our first day kind of really truly back on the field in a good while. So it was good to get back out there with a bunch of the guys. The first time in the building probably in a good 13 or so days, and just try to get those guys back into football shape and get their mind back into things, whether they've been whatever. They haven't done a whole lot of things in the last 13 days or so. So there's a lot of things that we got to get ourselves back into. Playing football is one of them, but also making sure guys are in a good place that aren't pulling hamstrings and different things like that when all of a sudden you just pop back out there and think you're going to pick up right where you left off. So we've got some work to do. That's for sure. But at least now we've got a idea of what it is we're working with, and now we can, make sure we can start to get our guys working towards the 19th.
Are you able to give us a scope of what you were dealing with in terms of outbreak or number of positives and things like that?
I'd be honest with you, I couldn't begin to really kind of dive into all of it. I don't know exactly. But it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff going on that was really difficult, and you're not around a bunch of the guys. It's just hard. I mean, this has been a crazy year for everybody, not just college football, not just coaches, not just players. But there's a lot of things that you kind of just bending with and adjusting on the fly with, and whether it's a disappointment or something that's a positive. There's been a lot of that outside of just Saturdays that normally in college football and football in general, the ups and the downs and the things that go through a week are one thing, and then a lot of stuff's based on how guys play on Saturday, and this year it's just a little bit different.
Prior to the decision coming in from the conference, were you guys planning to play this weekend at Tulsa?
Yeah, we had to find a way to get ourselves ready, and I think that the difficult thing for me was just, hey, give us some clarity. I don't think it's something that you can wait on. I appreciate them making a decision when they made it, because it's really difficult in being off for as long as we have been to try to say, hey, how are we going to push these guys and what are we legitimately going to try to do, with our time. It would have been, a lot of guys maybe getting one practice in the last 15 or so days to try to be prepared. So, it's hard. We would have found a way. Obviously would have been very modified for most of the guys. But now we can kind of switch gears and change things up and not have to, modify everything that we're doing. Hopefully we can get back into some semblance of normalcy of what we would normally do in a game week, early this week or late this week and then into next week.
You had a 21-day layoff before this season, and your team responded well. What were your concerns then, and do you have those same concerns heading into the next?
There's no doubt. Having a lot of time, you're trying to study some of these guys that have had layoffs and what has happened. And, I mean, it's pretty similar. When you haven't played the game, when you haven't had the little things, you haven't had the emotions of a game in a while, again, I trust our guys. We have a mature group, so I feel better about about that. Obviously, we had that with the start of the season. We did camp normal, went through everything pretty normal, came back home and had a good, 3.5 weeks before we would play. And then obviously during the season, we had a 21-day kind of slot in there. So we've been through it before. I guess that's the best thing that I could say for our guys is they've really handled a lot of these things well. Now we've got another opportunity. We've got another obstacle, and we've got to handle it every bit as well.
The last time you your game got canceled against Tulsa, you came and said you really did want to play that game. Is it different this time?
No, I think anybody that is a competitor, obviously there's concerns and there's things that you'd have to modify, but just like our kid, they want to play. I mean, anybody that works this hard, that's been doing this for 16 weeks of a season. I mean, this is the longest season. I mean, this is like an NFL season. You want to play, and I mean, that's the reality behind it. Every kid's the same way. They believe, hey, if I have one day of practice, I'll be fine. But it's difficult. There's an emotional roller coaster for all of us, whether you're a player or a coach. It's just no matter what, you just got to have some clarity so that you can continue to move forward.
Do you think it made it more of a straightforward or easy decision for the conference, knowing that you all are set to play the following week anyway? So now it's just going to be 4 quarters of football between you two instead of 8?
I don't know. I mean, the conference still wants to put on display our teams and our conference, and the more games you play, I know that's a big deal. But I respect them for understanding what the situations are like and making a decision. I don't know if it's harder or easier for them, to be honest with you. Everybody's human, but obviously they got to think in a different light in a business side of things for sure, and then obviously in a health and safety for young men too. So there's a lot of things that go into it. That's why they do what they do. All I asked was, hey, just give us some clarity so that we know how to push and what to do based on what each one of our situations are.
Is there a silver lining that guys who might have been banged up have a little bit longer time to get restored?
Yeah, but 21 days is probably a good enough time to get restored. If you can't get restored in 21 days, I would imagine you wouldn't be playing, whether it's 28 days. That's just the nature of injuries, at least during a season. I think it's going to be something a little bit different based on, maybe the situation that we had and guys not having to more so put themselves in a situation of only practicing one time in maybe 15 days to go out there and go full tilt for 60, 70 snaps. I think it would have been really difficult. So, I don't know that we're going to get anybody back that's been injured. I think that the guys that were, I think we were in a pretty good place with 21 days of being able to get them back. They might have a little bit of something different being, playing the last couple weeks. But nonetheless, it can be a positive for you, or it can be a negative if you got too many practices too. So a lot of different things.
Luke, are you concerned at all that a lost game against Tulsa, who is a team ranked in the top 25, is a lost chance to put a good foot forward and give the playoff committee another data point to look at for your football team?
No, I really don't. I don't know that it's going to make any bit of a real difference. I mean, they can say different. People can say different. The reality is, once you play the game, that's what they're going to remember, and that's what they're going to see. And how you play, we've always said how you play in the end is really a big deal. I don't know that they're going to look at any bit of a layoff and different things like that. The reality is our goal and objective have been from the get-go is to play for a championship. Anything beyond that is something that's completely outside of our control. So I don't overanalyze and overthink about those things. It's about, hey, how do we get to a championship and how do we have an opportunity to win a championship? And everything after that, hey, we'll fall in place.
Based on the statement from John Cunningham and what you're saying about players maybe only having one practice, is it fair to say that this is less about maybe new or active cases and more about players getting back and going through the return to play protocol?
No, I think that's all. I think it's a combination of everything. I mean, everybody's gone through it all year. I mean, everybody's situation is different. You know, I mean, there would definitely be guys that wouldn't be back. There's a definite of that. There's, you know, coaches that wouldn't be back, but there are players that would be right in the middle of it too. You know, so it's a combination of everything. Obviously, it's a crazy time, and we've had, you know, obviously a really difficult last, you know, 14 or so days. So I don't know that there's any one thing that says, hey, there's an X amount of players. No, it's not just that. There's things on every end.
Coach, is it similar to, you know, I know there's been gaps and you weren't playing consistently and there's unknowns going in, but this remind you of possibly preparing for a bowl game with the big gap you have at the end of a season and then getting ready for a game on New Year's Day or whatever?
Everybody would say that. It's pretty simple to look and say, okay, X amount of days, you've done this before with bowl games. The thing about bowl games is you got a good idea of what's going on, and you can put a schedule ahead of knowing, okay, we don't play for another 24 days or 26 days or 18 days. The difficult thing for us is there's been so many unknowns and so many things you haven't been able to do. So it's not like you've been able to at least set a schedule. You know, we're very regimented people, and as coaches in general, and then our 18 to 22-year-olds are so anxious and antsy. It's more difficult not knowing, you know, whether you're playing, you know, on the 5th or you're playing on the 12th or you're playing on the 19th. I mean, you'd like to say, oh, that's okay. It's like a bowl game. You get a break and then you can get, you know, it's been really uniquely different. I've never been through something like it other than saying, okay, yeah, it's, you know, 20 some days. It's not the same.
Coach, what does this week look like as you try to get guys back up to speed and then getting into game week next week?
It looks like trying to get things back into playing mode, you know, which is difficult. You know, so we've got to find a way to make sure that the 20-some days and 28 days or whatever it's going to end up being that, you know, we've done the things we need to do. You know, we were playing really well. We were really on point. You know, I'm talking in all three phases of the game. And there's things like the special teams that you can really lose sight of when when you've had a layoff and you've had, you know, all these other situations and you're missing a lot of different guys here and there. So it's really for us as a whole, we got to get back to the fundamentals of what we do. Make sure we get our lungs back underneath us, understanding, you know, of playing the football game. So there's a lot of different things. This week is going to, you know, give us an opportunity, hopefully, to do some of that stuff until we can get into game week next week.
There was a mention that if you all do host the championship game, assuming you do, that you may ask to have some fans there. And I know you've talked this season about, you know, what it's like not having fans there, but what would it mean if you were able to have fans there? Or I guess what kind of difference would that make?
I don't know. I know that I don't know how many they had at UCF. I thought it made a difference. It was definitely, obviously, not normal by any means, but it did make a difference. It makes a difference in the atmosphere. I think it makes a difference on TV. Will it make a big difference for our guys? I don't really believe so. I don't know that, you know, whether there's a couple thousand people in the stands can make a legitimate difference. But I think it can give you a different feel. And, you know, I have no idea about all that. That would be great on both sides. I know for us when we played at SMU and I know when we played at UCF, I think it just made a different feel for our guys, something that they haven't, you know, got a lot of this year. And, you know, I think on both sides of it, you'd warrant it, you know, wherever you're playing, just to have a little bit of an atmosphere. I don't think it makes a big effect, but I think it does at least give a little something to the game.
For you as the head coach, what's been the most difficult thing the past 2+ weeks coming out of that win against UCF?
Not knowing. I mean, the complete emotional roller coaster. I would say that 18 to 22-year-olds have a tough time with not knowing and the roller coaster. The 45-year-old has a really tough time with the not knowing and the emotional roller coaster and not being around your guys and worrying, you know, just about all the different things that are going on. Not to mention, you know, finishing up school and things like that. So it's been very, very difficult, and I'm, you know, really just glad to know at least we've got a little bit of a plan that we can put in place now.
Everybody good? Any more questions?
You got your night carved out to watch the ranking show tonight?
No, I did not know that was the night. I forgot it is a Tuesday night. No, I'll probably be here working. It is what it is. I don't think that it's going to make any bit of a difference, no matter what where I am or what it is that I'm doing right now. So we'll let it ride.
All right, guys, I got one more.
Okay.
Good.
Last
Coach, you
question.
talked about that you can't necessarily control how or when players get it. You guys have had stretches where you've had a lot of success. Do you have any sense of what maybe caused the issue this time? Was it travel, or do you not know?
I don't know that we really know. I mean, I think in everything that I've learned throughout this, I'm not a doctor, is the more we think we have a good idea, the less we really do. So I couldn't pinpoint something. I know that, at times I think maybe, we get a little bit laxed, but there's not one thing you can say and you can pinpoint, probably. And everybody will speculate. Our doctors will continue to speculate because ultimately you want to find a way to make it better. And we've got an opportunity now to make sure whatever it is we thought, we can do a better job with it. Hopefully we don't ever have to rely upon our experiences this entire year, if this were to come up again in 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years. But if it would, I think that we would have at least a better idea of how things may have happened. But it'd be a speculation.